Okay, sir. I think we can start now. Sir, I think you're not visible. Okay. So, sir will start with the presentation soon. Uh, Till then, I'll like to introduce our guest today. Uh, so, we have Pankaj Dubey sir with us here today, and he is many things, out of which I'll start listing a few. First of all, he's the founder of DSPIN Consulting Private Limited. He was a former CEO of Eicher Polaris. He was a former MD of Polaris India. He was a business head at Yamaha and a business head at Intex Technologies. He was the CEO and MD of Power Global, an energy company. He also works as the board of director at Stairs Foundation, which is a sports promotion organization. Apart from that, he also works as the vice president of Brahmashri Devaraha Baba Ved Evam Yog Pathshala. He's also a visiting professor at Amity University, OP Jindal University, Masters Union, and the list goes on and on. So, without further ado, I would like sir to start off with this presentation. Welcome, sir. We are honored to have you today. Sir, you are muted, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you, Kunal, for the introduction. We'll start now. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, sir, you are perfectly audible.
Perfect. So I've created a short presentation. So we start with that, and then we'll take it forward with a question, answer, and discussions with all of you.
Sure, sir.
Uh, is my screen visible now?
Uh, no, sir, it isn't for me.
I did that. Okay. Is it visible now? Hello?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir, it
It
is
is.
visible.
It is.
Perfect. So this is, the tagline that I feel is extremely important for all youngsters, and it helped me a lot. Dream big with timelines. With my life being, starting from a place called Varanasi, where it was most of my family members were in the government job. To get into the corporate world and do well in life was a distant. You know it was a tough thing because there was no guidance available that how do you work and what, because everybody in my family, extended family, were in government job. Now from there, what I learned, the first biggest lesson of my life: dream big with timelines. I have another small learning from my life to share with you. One is that you respect self, guru, and woman. uh, Before we get into the details, what is very important is that you realize your potential, don't underestimate yourself, and therefore I say that please respect yourself. If you don't respect self, then it's difficult to respect others. And once you respect yourself, that I'm great, I'm very good, then you can respect guru is like the first guru is your mother, father, then teachers, friends, all of them. And then, as the saying goes, yat naryaste pujyante ramante tatra devata, yatre tastu na pujyante sarvastra phala kriya, which means that wherever the women are respected, devta lives there. So if you have to do real good business, then you have to really respect women, and that will make people happy, devtas happy, and therefore prosperity will come. And it's very important that when you're going into the corporate world, you are starting your own venture, that you be happy at home also. It's not possible that you are not happy at home and you be very successful on the work front. So there has to be a balance, which will, like, when you go back to your home, you should get motivated enough to start your work. So the motivation at home is very important. That can come with a healthy family relationships. Now I'll share you with you about my first startup. How did I started my career with Escorts, and then over the years I started with a sales officer at Escorts, and then became manager. And then my first big jump was when I joined Hero Motors and became the assistant general manager and then general manager. But all these years, my first big startup in the corporate world was when I joined Intex Technology. I was largely from an auto component, auto two-wheeler industry, and then I joined a company called Intex, which was purely a hardware company, and I diversified them and gave the idea to become to venture into telecom. And when I shared this idea, the chairman of the company said, Pankaj, my company will be doomed if it is not successful. And I said, your company would be known by telecom rather than your IT hardware. And whenever we meet, we laugh at it. And he says, yeah, that became a reality. So from IT hardware to Intex, so this was my first venture, and I led single-handedly, and then built up the entire team, and then this became a huge business forward. Then I joined Yamaha. Yamaha was a leader in motorcycle in India. From a market share of 40 plus, it had come down to 2%, and there was a Economics Times story saying that Yamaha to shut shop in India. This is when I joined, and I worked with them, and being termed as a turnarounder for them, launched all the big bikes like R15, FZ, Phaser, and it became extremely successful. And leadership started coming back at Yamaha, and people started loving the brand, and the growth story started from then. Thereafter, I did my second startup, which is when I joined the American Fortune 500 company called Polaris Incorporation. to lead their off-road industry in India, where the industry itself was at a very nascent stage. So far, my experience has been on, telecom, IT to telecom, in the two-wheeler industry. But here I was venturing into a product range where there was no industry, and therefore we did a very innovative strategies. And maybe some other point of time I can share what and how we established this brand in India. I led them for about a decade, and this was my second startup. And thereafter I started my third startup during this period only, when I was also given an additional responsibility of becoming a director and CEO at a joint venture between Eicher and Polaris, a great multi-purpose car, which is was a three-in-one, which is very similar to the mobile phone, like from a basic phone to a smartphone. And we were trying to get the same analogy shifted to automobile, where a basic car comes with more features, which is where it can double up to become a pickup van, a personal car, as well as generate electricity. So very innovative concept. And those of you would have seen this in Sri Lanka, where Dhoni and the entire cricket team sat on this vehicle and drove in the entire ground. This was my third startup.
Will, when they come back, they'll really make a strong.
Okay. Then the fourth startup I led. I thought that let me now start my own company, DSPIN Consulting. And DSPIN Consulting was started to support startups. Having these three experiences, I felt that I've got enough learnings where I can really make the startup successful. And therefore, we formed a consortium of team who come from a industry, very successful leaders, and we got them together to support the Indian industry, and with the experience coming from a very wide range of bureaucracy, defense, and administration. And so we joined hands together to start this company, because all of these are important before you make your startup successful. And we started with the idea that we'll make the marketing strategy, build the business network, but not just limiting for the business development, but we're looking at manufacturing, greenfield startup, supply chain, executive search. So we got a consortium of people to support. So any entrepreneur who have, suppose, an idea, we can convert that into reality. So that kind of a resources we have at DSPIN Consulting, and we have been helping some of the companies, global companies, as well as the Indian companies. Now, before we venture into the topic for the day, I thought that let me give you some background on the future of Indian economy and what the impact it will have on the automobile industry. So if you see, the average age by 2050 is expected of the Indian is expected to be about 38 years, which is right now in early 20s. And the population will grow by 15% to 1.6, but the per capita income would accelerate by almost 7 times, and therefore it will become $16,000. So maybe you can calculate by the dollar at that point of time. So it will be like a huge, it will be quite a earning for each individual on an average. Then we have, well before 2030, will be world third largest economy, and thereafter world second largest economy by 2050. And this has been quoted by Mr. Gautam Adani. I mean, he's in a lot of controversy with Hindenburg report, but at the same time, I really picked up his quote, which is his enthusiasm, and this has been corroborated by some other reports also, like Ernst & Young recently projected that Indian economy would be about 25 trillion by 2047, which is currently at 3.5 last year. Now, having understood all of this, what is the status of the Indian auto industry in the global scenario? So Indian auto industry right now is about third largest. India is the largest three-wheeler market and the largest tractor by volume, largest motorcycle manufacturer of the world, and the third largest car manufacturer. So all this put together makes India the third largest auto industry, and almost to the GDP, it contributes to about 1/3 of the total economy. So it's a pretty large economy support that auto industry provides. Now, with the change that we just saw with the per capita income, what do we see as the future? What will happen to the auto industry? Today, when a person goes and buys a motorcycle of 50,000, 60,000, or 1 lakh rupees, his income becomes like 7 times or 10 times of what it is today. Is he still going to buy a two-wheeler, or he would be jumping to a car? So my analysis and my understanding of the futures is very clear that The most of the two-wheeler buyer are buying it because it's the most affordable vehicle. It is the cheapest mode of transport, and they can't afford it anything like a car, because that becomes like a big pocket to spend every month for the fuel, for the EMIs and all of that. But when the income is high, what will happen? Would India will still be the largest motorcycle manufacturer of the world, or it will come down? So my view is that once people have more disposable income, the people who are enthusiasts, who really love biking, they would still continue to bike. But people who are commuting on a motorcycle, if they have 10 times of the income, they will no longer be going on two-wheeler. They'll prefer to have two-wheeler for some work, but they will all own a car. So I foresee that the future of car in this country is going to be really large, and probably making us the largest or the second largest car manufacturer in the world. We are already third largest based on last year data. Now, what sort of a futuristic vehicle can we expect? So there are a lot of aerodynamic designs changes you would have seen from what it was 20, 30 years back to what it is today. And more changes are happening so that the flow of air resistance and it improves the efficiency of the vehicle, and minimum protrusion is there. Autonomous capabilities where you no longer require a driver. You can just be like your Google map. You are saying I want to go from one to place to other, it guides you. Then probably you can just tell the technology to say that I want to go to this place, and it will navigate through all of that. So this work is already started, and a lot of companies are working already on it, and namely Google itself is working on it, Apple has been working on it. Now, the third category, what's coming up is the electric, and we have already seen a lot of work happening around electric powered motor vehicles with the alternate power like hydrogen fuel cells. We'll talk more about that, and other alternative energy sources, which will help the sustainability part. And then using advanced material like carbon fiber, graphene, so less weight so that it becomes more efficient, and less fuel is required to travel more distance. So those sort of advanced material is being studied right now in the futuristic vehicle. And then there are like advanced driver assistance systems, which is called ADAS, advanced infotainment system. And all these, the telecom, electronics, mechanics are merging together in the future vehicle, where cars will no longer be called just a mechanical vehicle. It is still isn't, because if you go today with any modern car to a service station, they would just plug in a USB to their laptop, and it will detect what is the problem in the vehicle and what needs to be changed, and so all of that figure comes automatically. So those sort of integration of IT telecom is happening, and so a lot of advanced technologies will be used in these future vehicles. Now, in order to understand that where are we today, what's going to happen, there are already plans by various countries to phase out the petrol and diesel vehicles. UK has announced that by 2030 they will phase out all vehicle. Even the hybrid vehicles, they are saying they will not allow by 2035, which means that zero use of petrol and diesel after 2035. Norway, which is already a leader in electric vehicles, have announced that by 2025, which is just a couple of years down the line, they will phase out petrol and diesel vehicle completely. And so the similar figure of Netherlands is 2030, similar figure of France is 2040, and Canada has announced in one of the state 2035, and the rest of the country is also considering similar measures. Now let's see what's happening in India. Indian government has set a target of about 30% electric vehicle adoption by 2030. And then some of the Indian states like Delhi has announced that by next year, which is like 2024, 25% of the sale of the new vehicle would happen of electric vehicle only. And they are already progressing quite well, and they are the leaders in this segment as of now. And at the same time, India has yet not announced that when they will completely switch over, but I feel that with the global changes, this will become very fast in India as well. Now, looking at what are the alternatives of lithium-ion batteries, there are like solid-state batteries, sodium-ion batteries, and supercapacitors. All these batteries are being worked around. They have their own strength and weakness, but definitely each one of these batteries are being explored, and the advantage and disadvantages are being studied, and the testing is going on. What can power tomorrow's vehicle? We already know electric vehicles will be having an electric motor, rechargeable batteries, and this is already gaining a lot of popularity. Another very significant is hydrogen fuel cells. Now this is something where Indian government has really been very enthusiastic of going into green hydrogen fuel cells, and they've been talking a lot about having a very clean and efficient. And at the same time, any new technology that comes in comes with a challenge of infrastructure and cost. That is there with the lithium ion batteries also, and the same will be there with the hydrogen fuel cells. But as and when these changes happen and the infrastructure fast development will happen, these are the possibilities that we can see in reality on the ground. Then the biofuels are already being talked about a lot, and you can see Nitin Gadkari ji very strongly propagating these, and he himself rides on a hydrogen vehicle. And then there are other, like a solar powered vehicle is also being talked about. At the current status, it is not very this something which is not very popular, but I feel that over the period of time this will become popular, or at least a combination of these with the other like a hydrogen or biofuels, and using solar power on the top roof of the vehicle or the bonnet on the sides may become a popular thing. Now, hydrogen powered vehicles is something where India is becoming very, very vocal, and they are betting big on this.
Hello.
And why? Because there's an improved range, increased availability, lower cost, because it's a much lower on the cost, and so the cost is decreasing actually, and therefore this is going to be a big change if this becomes successful. And all these infrastructure expansion, where like in California, Japan, and Germany, already they have been investing and expanding their the infrastructure for hydrogen fuel powered vehicles. And then they, again, like all technologies, have their own challenges. Like it took a long time for the gasoline vehicles to build the infrastructure. It is taking a lot of time for electric vehicles with lithium-ion batteries. We will also have the similar challenge with hydrogen, but I'm sure with the kind of a plan that the government of India is having, this can become quite successful. Now, that's all from my side on the presentation, and let's now move on to the presentation mode, and we can go on, leave the presentation now and go on a question answer mode, or any questions you have on the presentation, or otherwise are more than welcome.
So as some are raising their hands, we can actually take these questions a little late because now we'll like to have a short interview session with sir. And I would request Anshuman to go ahead and ask the questions to sir, and after that we'll take all the questions which are in the queue. Thank you.
Thank you, Kunal. Good evening, Pankaj sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Anshuman.
That was a great presentation, and you laid out lots of timelines that world governments and state governments have laid out for complete electrification, and that really shows that the future will truly be electric, and it's here, like not too far out into the future, just 10 years down the line. So just diving straight into that. These days, the two-wheeler EV space is really hot in the Indian market, and like Ola and Ather are talk of the town. So, what are your views on the two-wheeler EV space in India?
The two-wheeler V space is really undergoing a lot of change. There are like 300 plus manufacturers, and people are really almost every day new brands are coming up. Ather has been quite strong, and I really like their strategy, the way that they built up. Ola, I've been having my own reservations based on my interactions with their team, and therefore I see they have big plans, but it's quite challenging because of the strategies that they have right now. uh, Okinawa, I mean, they have been working on the cheapest low cost models, which is where they are close to number one. And but I feel that there has to be right importance to the quality as well, because understanding the Indian consumer is not very easy. People think that India wants the cheapest product, but it is not true. When you study the entire automobile industry, you will find the cheapest car or the cheapest two-wheeler does not sell. What sells is, like when you say the number one market share is being held by Honda or Hero, or the number one market share in the cars are by Maruti, but they are not the cheapest ones. There are cheaper versions available. People have tried to sell the vehicle below that, but customers have rejected them. Why? Because what they expect is a lot more, and there are a lot of hidden things which are there, like a resale value is something which is none of the place in the world people will talk about it, and even when you do a market survey in India, it will not surface. But it is very key and important decision to decide. So these are some of the things that, if you use very low quality vehicle, your vehicle becomes junk after 3 years and 5 years. And when it becomes junk, people don't realize the value, and therefore the brand does not take. You can get some numbers initially, but the brand will have that impact. And once the brand has been labeled as like a low quality, not very good, it's very difficult to change the perception of the people. Therefore, these three brands have potential, but they have to really work a lot. Out of all these three, I really like the strategy of Ather. They are on the premium side. They have to look at if they have to look at larger volumes. They have to look at some point of time to provide quality, low cost two wheeler with not a low cost but a reasonable price, like what Maruti has in the cars or what Hero or Honda has in the two wheelers. That sort of a strategy to attract the masses.
Thank you. I'd like everyone to know that Ather is an IIT Madras startup. So Tarun is from IIT Madras. Okay. Moving on to the next question. So there's also lots of chatter around whether fast charging or battery swapping will be the future. So what are your opinions on that?
So fast charger definitely, because if you have to charge your vehicle, it should be very fast, because like when you go, you are used to of refueling your vehicle in less than 5 minutes. So like you go to any gas station, maybe the travel time is there, but when you reach there, it takes not more than 5 minutes anywhere. When you have a new technology and you have to go there for waiting for long hours, it's not possible. So the quick charging is definitely required. It has to be like at least, like if you can charge in 1 hour 50% of the car, which is good enough for them to travel to any place, that should be there. There are quick chargers coming which can charge the whole vehicle within 15 minutes and 20 minutes. So but then there are infrastructure challenges. The kind of the power that is required to charge those vehicles are a challenge. Infrastructure is a big challenge. The swappable battery is something which is great and can work fantastic on the two-wheeler and three-wheeler segment, because that is where you have an option where you can have the just the electric vehicle cost will come down dramatically if there are swapping option available, where you don't have to buy the battery, because when you're swapping, the battery is not yours. Every time you will change the battery, and therefore you work on a subscription mode, like the gas that you get at home. You pay the subscription amount. You don't buy the gas as such. You just pay for the usage. So similarly, in the battery technology, this is being very successful in countries like Taiwan and China. So that is something where uh, we need to work upon. There are smaller companies which are working on that, but I see a big opportunity there, for especially for two-wheeler and three-wheeler segment, where the range would become when you're having a 70 kilometers, 80 kilometer, 100 kilometer on your motorcycle or a three-wheeler, and you have an infrastructure where you can go and swap the batteries, because swapping of the battery takes even lesser than refueling your vehicle with petrol or diesel, because you just have to take out the battery, give it to the person, and take a fresh battery and move. It is less than 1 minute. It has been shared by many. I have also demonstrated this. I worked with an American company, Power Global, where we worked on this concept. So this is something which is going to be potentially very big market, and hopefully some big players will come to make this happen.
Amazing. So recently, it was in the news that in Jammu Kashmir, a huge lithium reserve has been unearthed. So, what does that mean for the future of India's EV space? Could you throw some light on that?
Yeah, India was the richest country in the world and hopefully we will be richest country based on what Gautam Adani says or what other Ernst and Young report says. These are the things which are like natural resources. If we can figure these out and we can really convert them into a reality practically, then this pace will become very fast. The like favorite thing that I have always shared is about finding out what fuel was used in Pushpak Viman when Ravana took Sita ji from India to Sri Lanka. Now, if you can figure that out, and this is available in abundance in the country, imagine what will happen. You can just fuel it and go to another country, forget about leaving from one city to another. Maybe that is not lithium, something else. So R&D has to really work on what is that kind of an alternate energy that we can figure out. As far as the discovery of lithium ion, in Jammu and Kashmir I have read detail, and one of my cousins have been working very hard on that. So I have got a full preview of that. So it's like a very early stage. It's going to be a long time before we can actually turn that into a commercial use. But it's good that we have discovered, and we have to really work hard and expedite the conversion of that into how we can fast use that in a commercial segment.
Okay. So, what are some competitive advantages that countries like China and Taiwan have over India in the EV space right now? And what are some competitive advantages that we could hope to have over them in the future?
So it's all about the technology. You take a lead and you become ahead of others. Like you see the Middle East, all the Arab world, they never knew what is this black, dirty liquid. And so somebody came and discovered, and they said, oh, wow, this is energy source. And that is how the fossil fuel was discovered, and they become the richest part of the world. And now China did very smart when they found out that lithium is the most viable alternative. Even before that, it became widespread. They bought over almost in the entire world wherever this was available in abundance, lithium ions. So they took over those areas and they invested heavily into those markets. So today, if electric vehicle in as such lithium battery goes forward, it will be huge advantage for China. And that's why you see in our country our political leaders are supporting it, but they are also looking at very strongly on hydrogen. So suppose that we can take a lead on green hydrogen and we can figure that out and make it into commercial. That is where we will have huge advantage. And China, which is thinking that they will race ahead with lithium ion only, it will get a dent if we have an alternate energy which is more powerful or equally powerful and practical. So that is where India can gain to invest heavily onto the research and design to find out what are the alternatives and take the lead in that technology. You can't copy somebody and become a leader. It's not possible. When you try, like China has made very smart move. Uh, so we have to look at something. It cannot be just exactly what is happening in China or the current technology, and we can try to be smart enough to figure out whether Jammu Kashmir is there or in Karnataka we have found the reserves and we start exploiting those. But if we find something which is in abundance in India, it's not available world over. That is where there'll be huge advantage to India. So I would recommend that we should invest a lot of energy into research and development of alternate energy rather than, I mean, what's happening, we should continue to follow. We should not be laggard and should not fall behind. But our effort should be very high on looking at alternate energies.
Okay, so let's segue into your career. And you talked about your first startup, which was Intex. So, what were you doing before, and how did you land that job? And what were you doing at Intex?
So prior to that, I was in LML scooters. So I had no experience of IT industry. So that was my first experience. The only thing I had positive was my boss had a experience of IT and automobile. He worked for Daewoo and he was my boss at LML. And so he shifted to this IT company as a CEO, and he had very high belief in me, and he asked me to join over. And so I didn't know exactly what products are, but I, on the faith of Mr. GS Maheshwari was my boss, and unfortunately is no more. So he asked me to join, and I joined. And when I joined, I saw a company which is having a lot of youngsters, having very high potential, but very unorganized. Not very strategic, and they have been doing very good. They've done very well, but they have not touched upon the corporate, ethos and the way that the all the energies can be directed in a particular way, and creation of a brand in text. So that is where I worked upon, and that is when I was looking at, and when I went to China for a supply chain job to get all these IT hardware. And while I was there, I saw that people are no more using Nokia phones. India was like almost 80 to 90% Nokia, and I saw hardly anybody using Nokia, and everybody's phone was very attractive. And I thought that this must be really very expensive. And then when I checked with them, they said, "Oh, it's very low cost." And that's where my interest happened. And then I got in touch with few people who have been working on it, and I came and I dig deep into it to study, and I could foresee, like what I shared, that what's going to happen in the automobile industry in the next 10 years or so. I could see that telecom is going to undergo a change in India, and therefore I convinced my management to invest into the telecom sector, and we did that, and it became a story, and it became pretty big, almost 8,000 crore company from a 100 crore company.
Amazing. So it was really that shift from being like an IT peripherals company to a mobile company that led to the growth from 100 crores to those thousands of crores.
No, so 100 crores had already become, like when I joined, it was some 100, few 110 or something. And by the third year, it was already at 300 crores. And we were looking at that, how do we diversify? And that is when we found the telecom business. And the telecom business itself was huge potential, and it was quite profitable at that point of time. Later on, because of the government policies and changes, and when the Chinese, it was like we were buying from China, branding it and marketing it. And when Chinese saw so much of revenue is being made by the Indian company, they came themselves directly, and so it became a challenge. But that is where the learning has to be, that when you are into a business, you have to see what's going to happen next, and then you get into the right sector. So today, electric vehicle is the right sector, I believe. It can be with lithium and battery, it can be with hydrogen fuel cell or some other cells, but that is the future. And so if you invest your time and energy in the futuristic industry, you're likely to be more successful. Imagine Sunil Mittal talking about Airtel when nobody was thinking on those lines, and he took that, and Airtel became a huge brand. So those are the things that is like, you see the future, and then you become big.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. So, what was the most exciting project that you worked at Intex, and what was your personal contribution to that project?
The first thing was to figure out that what should be the shortlisted models. So I went to Taiwan and China and talked to some of the leading manufacturers of mobile phones there, and shortlisted those models, and did a tie-up, got agreements done with them in order to get the right kind of a product. And understanding the Indian market, Indians are very fond of gold, and so I selected one of the model which was totally gold, and I said this is something which I would like to launch, and it will become a crazy thing for people to buy here in India. So like that, we just found, like, when I spoke this entire idea to the management, they said we have zero experience ourselves, and we have no person in the company, including you, who have a knowledge of telecom. So my answer to them was that when I came to your company, I had zero knowledge of IT also. So, and you have seen the business, how it has grown. So now I can see that this is going to happen in the telecom sector. So they really had a lot of internal debates, and they finally agreed and got convinced, and rest is history.
So, you were probably trying to look for a model that was low in price, knowing that India is a very price sensitive market. So, what was the price back then? This was the early 2000s, right? Or the late 2000s?
Yeah, it was like 2005, 6. So that was the time when the models were all available at like less than 2,000, and we were not looking at the cheapest model again. Like what the strategy I shared, that I have always mostly done launch of products and all with a good quality, a slightly premium, not out of reach. Like if you're everybody is buying at say 2,000 rupees, I don't go and say that okay now you buy 20,000 rupees product. Then I'm like super premium. So that's another strategy. But what I have always worked around that if it is 2,000, that let me have something around 2,500 to 3,000 rupees, but it has a lot more features than you have. So we started off with the price points which like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 rupees to start with. And then the image is built. Oh, great. What a nice product. So not everybody can buy it, but they can know that, oh, that's a great brand, a very nice phone and all of that. And then you launch something which is like a lower version of the people can buy or the masses can buy. That's where the volume game happens.
Right. So, what was the retail price of the Intex phone back then?
It was in the range of 3,000 plus minus 500 rupees.
3,000. So, what was the price that you were able to procure it from the Chinese or Taiwanese factory, and what was the additional cost? Like, what additionally were you guys spending in order to be able to bring it to retail?
So you want to get the trade secrets, you know?
Are these confidential numbers?
No, I mean it's a long back. I'm sure nothing to hide at this point of time.
Right.
But these are all models where you can get very good healthy margin of about 35% to 50% for the company after taking account most of the expenses and import costs, duties, and everything. So from where it was like a low cost Nokia, where dealers and distributors were hardly making any money, but they were having large volumes,
Right.
to a product like these where we have healthy margins, where you can invest, you can create brand of your products, and you can come out with great strategies to make people visible about it because you have revenue, you have gross contributions available for you to spend. So we
Right.
use that.
Right. So from what I understand, on that sale of a 3,000 rupee phone, Intex was able to make like 1,000 rupees. And how much of that belonged to the retailer, and how much of that belonged to the manufacturer?
So it will be like 1,000 rupees would be available at the company, and
Right.
retailer would happen like retailer would that point of time would be getting hardly what 50 rupees, so maybe
Right.
5%, 4%, and we were offering them like a 10% of this. So like from a 50 rupees, he gets somewhere at 250 to 300 rupees per phone. So
Amazing.
8 to 10% is what he gets. So suddenly they start feeling, okay, let me get into this business. This is pretty attractive.
So this is 2005, 2006. So what was the Nokia retailing at on average, and how much were the retailers making on that?
No, yeah, that's what I said. Nokia was available below 2,000 at that point of time, and it was mostly available with a margin which was like 50 rupees or so for the retailers.
Right.
So when you talk to a retailers, they would say, "Oh, this is not a very great business to get into. This is something where you get 50 rupees and you hardly make anything out of the product." But then the volume was so high
Hmm.
that they were still all of other retailers were asking other people not to enter into this business, but at the same time they were into this business because of volume, because they were in a monopoly situation. But the moment they were like other competitors that came in, and the customers start seeing value for money or the additional features, smartphones and all of that started, that is where the change shift starts happening. And even the Nokia got very adversely affected globally. What I saw in China, Nokia market share was hardly anything. That started happening in India also, and subsequently globally the same thing happened with Nokia.
So I think back then there was no online D2C thing as such. So how were you guys at Intex able to sell the phones? Were you selling through retailers, through telemarketing on TV? What was the strategy?
So we did, some smart marketing. We That time there was a movie called Guru came in, where
Right.
Dhirubhai Ambani and Abhishek Bachchan was there, Aishwarya Rai. So we integrated with the movie post production, and we launched the phones through those associations. So a lot of people suddenly started recollecting like it's Aishwarya Rai and Abhishek Bachchan have endorsed it or something like that. So we did that, and overall the branding was made in such a way that it became very popular, and the entire network that we built was a fresh network. What we used was uh, that our current dealers, we had a large retailer network doing sales of IT hardware, and we said the customers are coming there only. So we said, let's merge it. Let's give it to our existing dealers rather than build completely new network. We gave to our existing dealers, and those dealers started doing well. We started promoting them or supporting them more, and as a result, it became overnight big success, because we had a large IT hardware network who were already making money through Intex, and suddenly they have a mobile phone business which multiplies their revenue as well as the profitability substantially. So we used the existing network of Intex and did a lot of branding, so that the recall, when the customer walks in, they don't say, "Oh, what this? Which is this phone?" So they have a recollection already there.
Yeah, I think Intex in India definitely has a very good brand recall. Like everyone knows, Intex has a brand. So I wanted to shift a little bit to the IT peripherals business. So over there, like since it's a commodity, like there must be hundreds of players selling keyboards or mouses. How were you guys able to create that strong presence in India, like when other people weren't able to do the same?
So there were two things. There was a very strong quality check. We had a very strong team which was based out of Shenzhen in China, who were really trying to get quality products. So we were not like going and buying the lowest cost product and selling to the market and the customer facing problem. And uh, good quality check, good products imported, not very expensive. So it is like reasonably priced, value for money product, but not the cheapest, and we backed it up with a very strong after sales network. So we knew that these are Chinese product and they may have problems, but we created a very strong, the company leaders were great, and they created a vision where they had service setups all over the place, and no questions asked. If there's a problem, they immediately replace. So the customers were very happy. What is the way that Amazon has really captured the market today, Intex in that sense was doing it then. I remember when we were launching any new, audio systems, speaker system, which was like we were the leaders in that segment. We will go and personally listen to the music, that how the sound quality of this product is, and it's not that anything that comes in we start throwing into the market. We will check that, we'll test it, and when we see that it is really good quality, that is when we'll send it to the market, and we have proper setup after sales service available. So the strength of Intex was this only, that they had a good quality product, reasonably priced, and a very strong after sales support.
I remember when I was young, at my house also there were, I think, Intex speakers, Intex keyboards, and I think Intex's CPU as well. So I
Yes,
think you guys gave like good margins to the retailers, and along with that, like you mentioned, not the cheapest product at a slight premium, but the product is really good. So like those shopkeepers would also recommend Intex's stuff. Like they would say like ये टिकेगा ये वाला ले लो, like kind of
yes.
like that.
Not only that, they knew that if there is any problem, customers will not run away. They will not get angry. No, I'll not buy from this shopkeeper, because they knew that the Intex is the only company which is giving very strong after sales support. So even if there is a problem, please go. I am there. I'll support you, and you'll get a replacement. You'll get it repaired. So that is the kind of a confidence the retail had, and what we did was to just get them all together. So Intex already had these strength, which was built up from a very small base, but we just tried to corporatize things together and got all of them together. We had a national campaign, we had a competition within the state, national level. We started honoring the best dealers. So something what very corporate things are there, we started implementing that. Participation in Pragati Maidan and big shows, certainly the visibility of the brand became high. And something like Guru, we did those movie associations and all of that at a very effective low cost, and created the brand after sales support, good quality. That's what did the trick.
Okay, can you explain to me how an Intex product back then got from a factory in Shenzhen to India to the shopkeeper to my house? Like how many agents are involved in this whole value chain?
So first, the product would be shipped directly by the company,
Okay.
which is like a supplier. Our team is there, and they would go and check the quality at the the various supplier end itself. and they will pick up anything from the line where they are making Intex products. We'll check, first of all, sample check, then physically checking when they are producing it, and then the product will land into India straight to our warehouse, from where we will do a random quality check. They had a quality team, we have after sales support team who will go and do the random products. We will sample it ourselves, and then it will get distributed to various dealers and stockists and distributors all over the country in the retailer segment. So there were various levels of channel, and we supply them directly from the company.
So then it is the distributors that give it to the shops, the individual shops. Is that
Yeah.
right?
So this was like a, in various part of the country we had different concept, but mostly they were like big distributors. So we are not directly into the retail shops. We are mostly looking at distributors and dealers in the city, who in turn will support these retailers.
Right.
The
Amazing.
retail concept came in subsequently when we felt the need of a retail shop with mobile phone. But prior to that, it was mostly branding to retail and all. But almost all of them had, when I was working in the automobile industry still is like a single brand. This is where they were multi-brand. So you have to be very smart that how your brand becomes more visible at the same shop where the customer are visiting, and he has multiple choice available. So how can you make that happen? You can do that through a smart strategies, whether you're paying more to the dealer, whether you're giving very good after sales support to the dealer, or you're giving good quality product to the dealer, so that he's confident that, okay, I will make money. And then the stable policies for distributors. It's like your distributor is associated, you are associated with them for a long term. So every time the new product comes, you offer them, okay, can you start with this? So the entire retail chain and the network was very enthusiastic to deal with the company, because they were looking at, okay, something new is going to come, and the moment you recognize them and say, okay, now in this state this distributor is number one, this is number two, the feeling of competition and doing well was there. So all of this put together made them very successful.
Okay, so can you explain to me how a distributor is compensated, and how, I mean, how much the retailer, the shopkeeper makes, and how much the distributor makes?
So these are strategies where we have a MRP. So we have fixed up. Suppose the MRP of the product is say 500 rupees. Now we give say 10% margin to the retailer. So we add 5% to the distributor, and we say that, okay, there'll be logistic cost available. So we add another 2-3% or 5% to the distributor for all the other arrangement, inventory holding cost, and all that. So 10% is with the retailer, 10% is with the distributor, and then we'll invoice it to the distributor, and who in turn will take it. And then there is a gap from the customer also is expecting that the prices has to be slightly less. We know that the product is selling at a price. The say 200 rupees is the MRP, but the product is already selling at 150. So we'll do the reverse calculation from there. So that time GST was not there. So today GST is like a first point. So you have to pay tax first, and then, but that time it was not there. So these are the strategies used then, where we were very smartly keeping the price higher, so that when the customer gets, he also feel, oh, the product price is 300 rupees and I got it for 200, and the distributor already makes say 10% on that, retailer makes 10% on that, and the company is also making 30% on that. And so all the entire base is happy,
Okay.
including the customer.
Okay. So, let's say something goes for 100 rupees. How much was the distributor invoiced for? It's around 70-60 rupees.
Yeah, so we'll take into account that 10% will go to the retailer through the distributor. 10% would be like his margin. So it is like 20 rupees. So if it is 100 rupees, we'll bill it to him 80 rupees inclusive of taxes. And then, we've given them upfront, and then we'll keep some margin as a distributor target orientation. Like, okay, if you do X number in this month, suppose that you are doing a business of 1 million rupees in a month. So you will get, say, 2% extra. If you do 2 million, you get 2.5% extra. And like that, the variable incentive is also there on top of that margin that he gets upfront. So what happens is that they are not just looking at that, okay, we buy and sell, whatever sells, it's fine. They are looking at how to maximize my revenue. So they are all the time calculating, oh, I already sold 9,90,000. Now somehow if I sell another 10,000, I will get 25,000 rupees in this deal. So dealer distributor is always calculating a different margin which is going over and above the billing price.
Right. So they do the on ground hard works, paid works. They can put your stuff into, so they can earn these additional margins and like get those extra incentives.
Absolutely.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for explaining all of that to us. Now let's move on to your employment at Polaris. Like, how did you land that job, and what were you working on at Polaris?
So it was very interesting. I was the business head at Yamaha, and I had just turned around the company. So they were all over the place. People were talking about, like, okay, this guy went to a company where the market share was declining for last 20 years, and suddenly the market share started increasing. So the media and everybody was talking about it. And I got a call from one of the consultants to say, we have a company which is interested to meet you. And I said, what is the name of the company? They said Polaris. So Polaris had zero business, and till that time, I have not even driven any ATVs. So I had little idea that. So they said that this company is a very big company, and they want to get into. They have big motorcycles and all this. I asked them what motorcycle. They said the name of the motorcycle is Victory. So I said, oh, I've not even heard this name. So I don't think I will be interested in this company. So I flatly refused to the consultant. Now this consultant went back, and so after a few days, the vice president, the senior most person in the consultant, he called up to say, I want to meet you. And I said, sorry, I'm not interested. I've already had a discussion. They said, no, this company is great company. You should know and learn about it, and you will be very happy. Can we meet once? So I said, yeah, we can meet, but I'm really into Yamaha, so I'm not looking at a change right now. He said, okay, but the US team is coming, so can we meet in a day or two? I said, in a day or two, it's not possible because I'm traveling to Bangalore, and then I'm going from there to another city, and I'm coming after 3 days. So forget about it. I'm not available. He said, no, I will come down to Bangalore. So both of us are in Delhi, NCR, and he flew down to Bangalore to meet me just because that I had all the engagements got over and over dinner meeting had, and he explained that how this company will do very well. And so what I saw was that there was like two-wheeler company and a four-wheeler, like ATVs were four-wheeler. So far I had experience of two-wheeler, and I thought that, okay, we'll have a two-wheeler, four-wheeler, so good experience. So I got slightly interested, and the next day, I had a meeting with the president of that company, was fortunately coming to India. So I had a nice discussion with him. And the third day, the CEO, global CEO, was also in India. So we had a discussion in Delhi. Mostly people will have to travel to US to have the final interview. But in my case, the CEO came to India and we met, and they offered me. It was like very fantastic package, and it was very challenging. So I always looked at something which is really big. Like I said in the first slide, dream big with timelines. So when I was a general manager, I made a big dream to say that I have to become a CEO by this date, and I wrote down all the details of what about the package and what it should be, and I listed down everything. And this company offered me more than what I had thought about, and so it became very exciting for me. And at the same time, it was like a something which is not heard of, like you have to establish an off-road business and where there is no industry. So far, like Yamaha was doing bad, and I had to go and turn around the company. There were like market there, so you have to create, increase your market share by a strategy. In this case, you have to create the industry itself, and that's where I started. And I was very fortunate that I had discussions with the team. I got whomsoever I wanted to select. All the team members joined for this cause, and we really made very innovative strategies. And those innovative strategy was later on adopted by Polaris globally, and it became a success in India and rest of the world as we started a concept called Polaris Experience Zone. So maybe that's a huge idea, and we converted that into a business. We also got to know the who's and who's of the country. We got Prime Minister Modi sitting on our vehicle. Then we got President of India, the Defense Minister, Home Minister. I don't know how many chief ministers I drove the vehicle myself, sitting next to them. in my vehicle. So the who's and who's of the country started knowing me, and the culmination was when the president of India invited me for a dinner with about 20 people, and I was one of the guests. And in that 20 list was Modi ji and some of the ministers, and one of them was Pankaj Dubey, and I was like, and we had a dinner on the table with the president, and it was a fantastic experience. So that is where I would say that it was a great opportunity to build up the business and contributed substantially. We supplied a lot of snow scooters and ATVs to the Indian Defense Forces. We created that market, and a very right kind of a strategy we adopted. We supplied to various police forces and forest departments. So very different market from what I did at Intex or I did at Yamaha. This was totally different industry, and different set of strategy was required. And you now here your customers were Salman Khan, Shah Rukh Khan, all these big celebrities like Vijay Mallya. So these are people, Rahul Gandhi and Robert Vadera. These are the people who wants to own these vehicles, and now they are your customers. So your approach has to be very different from what it was from a mass marketing to a niche marketing, and the entire strategy of what you should sell. Where even the Prime Minister Modi will notice that, okay, this company, who's the head and what are they doing, and so these are the things that really had a very different marketing, very different strategies to create, and we created that and became a great success, and I led them for about a decade. It was fantastic.
Amazing, amazing. One second. Kunal, the audience has some questions.
Yes. So I guess we can, sir, if you have some time, we'd like to ask a few audience questions, because the people are just writing so many questions inside of the chat box and the Q&A section. So I hope we have some more time for
That's
some
fine.
questions.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So, firstly, we have two hands raised. I guess the first one is Gurneet, I guess. So, uh, please ask your question, Gurneet.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Gurneet.
Yeah, so I actually have been doing a lot of research in the EV sector, okay, especially the charging station networks in India, how the current plan has been laid out. And you yourself said that they are working on obviously making the car industry a bit more EV dominant, right? 25%, 30% in the next 5 years, 10 years. The thing is, are they able to match the pace with the charging stations? Because as far as I've done research, the government has sanctioned a lot of charging stations, like 2,000, 3,000 charging stations on highways, etc. But only like a couple of hundred have been made.
So it is a question of chicken and egg.
Okay, who comes first?
You have the infrastructure and you don't have enough vehicles on the road, so the infrastructure will collapse. I know some of the American companies that came to India, they were very gung-ho about the infrastructure and setting up the charging stations, and they landed into big trouble because they invested. The infrastructure is like you have to buy a place, or you have to rent a place, you have to hire people, you have to have the infrastructure, invest into the charging station. A lot of machines have to be implemented. You have to get a special connection of power because power requirement is very high. You have to have safety standards. All of that is going to have a cost. Now you set up the infrastructure, but number of vehicles are very less, so very few people will come to charge, and then charge has to be very reasonable, otherwise people will say, oh, it is more expensive, so they will never come. So the initial phase, this challenge is happening, where the number of vehicles on the road is less, and the number of infrastructure is like those people who started had to really shut down or close down or reduce dramatically to say that, okay, let's be viable, and then we'll expand when the number of vehicles are more. So this is where the challenge is, and I in fact suggested a strategy of implementing a retrofitment. So I had a great meeting with Nitin Gadkari ji to say that we have to build up the infrastructure. We need more vehicles on the road, and to have more vehicles on the road, it is better that scrapping vehicles and all of that. You develop a retrofitment where you can convert your existing vehicle to electric. So what happens is that this is going to be an overnight large volumes of vehicle, and even when you say that after 3 years or after 5 years we'll have 25% electric vehicle, but you will still have 75%
75%.
fossil fuel vehicle. 75 fossil fuel vehicle are still polluting, you know. So is it going to control? No. So if the infrastructure, and if I have to really control the match the infrastructure with the number of vehicles, then you have to somehow increase the number of units on the road. So if there are more vehicles on the road, infrastructure will automatically come, because there are people who really want to invest, but they know that if they invest today, like some other of their counterparts, they will land into trouble. So that is where we are stuck, and that is where, it's already happening. Like if you see in the car space, a lot of people are buying now, especially in the commercial vehicles, and they are not complaining about the infrastructure. You will see that blue car, and then there are like so many taxi owners, they've bought the electric vehicle, and suddenly you find a lot of green vehicles on the road, green number plate vehicle in Delhi NCR at least, and then there are in Bangalore and Chandigarh and all these places. So why they are buying cars? Because there is infrastructure available. So if you now today go from one city to another, there are infrastructure available, but they are not very high. More, so they will become very high, become very easily accessible, and more infrastructure will come when there are more vehicles. Fortunately for us, all the electric car vehicles are sold off. Like every manufacturer, they have announced that, okay, I want to sell this vehicle. They are all sold out, whether it is BYD or whether it is BMW or Audis, and all of them, they are all sold out. uh, the this MG vehicles. I mean, I literally get calls to say, "Can you please expedite my booking? I have been waiting for 6 months and 1 year and all of that." So these are the kind of a situation, and hopefully in the next few years, where the increase in electric vehicles is already happening, the infrastructure will catch pace, and
Okay.
they have to go in tandem. It cannot go like you first build the infrastructure and then something will happen. And also your technology is changing. Suppose that you build up the infrastructure all over the country, and India suddenly says that no, no, we are going for hydrogen, we are not going for lithium ion. What will happen then? All the infrastructure company will collapse and all the investment will go down the drain. Therefore, everybody is very watchful and they are moving very consciously, and they are saying that okay, let's put small step, which is required. Nothing that we just on the face of is that we have to have in 5 years time everything will become. So they will put in the charging infrastructure, and tomorrow that charging infrastructure itself will become outdated because you're using a new technology now. You're not using the lithium ion batteries, but you're using solid state batteries or supercapacitors, or a sodium based battery. So maybe you have to redo the investment. That is where the challenge is happening. But good thing is that this is happening globally, so you can expect that in the next 3 to 5 years there will be big change happening.
Yes, but as per like I understand your point, but as per a research, recent article in a newspaper, I guess the Times of India, there was an article I read that most of these EV tech companies, right, they are saying that whatever charging stations that have been laid out, the network isn't efficient. Okay, because there are some charging stations that are not being used at all, then there are some that are being overused, and obviously there's this case of people using electricity from their own houses in a very unsafe manner to charge their electric vehicles. I don't think so it will be another sooner time where we'll have charging stations in our own buildings, in our garages, to help. So, like, do you think there will be a way to optimize this network, the current network, without adding any more or investing any more?
See, you are right. The power requirement at these centers are very high. Suppose that you have one car charging, then you require 5 kWh. You know, and then you
Yes.
have 10 cars charging, then you require 50 kWh at the same time. Now, if you have like the two wheelers also coming at the same place, so the requirement keeps increasing, and your efficiency level would be slightly less. So if you have to supply 50 kWh, like a car has a 50 kWh power, and if you give 5 kWh, which means it will take 10 hours for the car to get charged. Now if you provide 50 kWh, then you can charge one vehicle in 1 hour. If you have the right technology, then you can charge that in 1 hour. But if you have 10 cars at the same time, you require 500 kWh. That is something which is not available, and that is like a big challenge. And
Yes.
that is where some innovative concept have to be brought in. Like you have a solar panel coming in, and you from the solar charging you are getting the charge, not just dependent completely on the electricity
Electric
board to
power
supply
grid.
the power, not just the power grid. So you have to very smartly think on what you have to do from that front. Also, the energy storage system have to come in play. Like you can have, like, during the sun, you can charge the battery, but you have to store the battery, the energy also. Otherwise, during the dark, the battery and the energy will go off. The efficiency is very low. So therefore, if you store those energy into a storage cells, then you can use it, and the surplus, and then all this will become very big. So that's why government is in India, or government of India, as well as globally, there are a lot of work happening around storage systems, where you have, like, whatever, whether it is wind energy or any source of energy, you can store the battery within the area, and you have the energy available, and you don't depend on the grid to supply. And the fluctuation and all of that will become very nice if you have a good technology storage systems. So that is where, storage system, use of alternate energy, and less dependence on the power grid has to happen, and all of this have to be combined to make these infrastructure viable.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Lastly, I'm actually working on a project, college project for the same topic. So, is it okay if I can get in touch with you just so I can get a little bit of idea on how to go ahead? Because I'm trying to make it as an optimization problem using programming and stuff. So,
You're
if
more
I
than welcome, Gurneet. Yeah, you're
okay,
more
sir.
than.
Thank you so much, sir.
Uh, just one follow up regarding what sir said in between is about retrofitting current vehicles with EV kits. There is actually a question from a startup founder that we have who is trying to do these retrofit kits. He wants to ask what are any regulatory compliances that he might encounter while doing such a thing with retrofitting the normal vehicles with EV kits. Like he's trying to do it with two-wheelers and four-wheelers. So, sir, what would your advice be to such a person?
I think, very brave of this person. What's the name of this young chap?
Sir, his name is Bipin Pal. He's not here actually, but we had some questions posted beforehand. So he's trying to do a startup where he is trying to retrofit vehicles. So yes.
It's a great idea, and there are a lot of challenges. Like everything, like we discussed about electric vehicle, and Gurneet pointed out about the infrastructure and all of that. So similarly, in the electric vehicle also, there is a lot of challenges. Like government is giving subsidy on the battery, like 15,000 rupees per kilowatt hour of battery. Government is giving a subsidy. So now, when you have, like, the subsidy is available on a new vehicle, but it's not available on a retrofit vehicle. So that's a number one challenge. Number two is that the regulatory approvals, like you can convert yourself, that how do you get an approval? Now, for that approval, the current system which is there, like we have two major authorities. One is the ARAI in Pune, and the second is in Manesar. So both these ICAT, so both these organizations approve anything, and they are also registered to approve the retrofit kit also. So that is where, the government has to make some changes, and I've already given a white paper to Nitin Gadkariji's team to say, and also personally discuss with Gadkari sahab, you please make it. And he asked me that give me the rules and regulation globally how it is done. So I got the regulators from Australia, UK, US, and gave them a document to say that in some cases it was like, once you have converted your vehicle, what you are supposed to do is that drive your vehicle and go to the registration authority, driving your vehicle with the electric vehicle. And when you go and drive, which means that the vehicle is working fine, and you approve it. So there were as simple as this, and as opposed to that, there are others, like you have to get approval. So current system of approval is very tedious and very difficult. Hats off to Vipul, who's thinking about it. I've really done a lot of work on this, so I can really guide him on this. But it's if the regulatory changes happen, it becomes very easy, and that is required to build the mass. The vehicle on the road has to increase, and to make all these become very practical, the infrastructure becoming viable, and all of that.
Thank you, sir, for your insight. Maybe I'll contact him personally and tell how his question was answered. Uh, we can maybe just take one more question. Like most of them.
Most of them. Okay, so I'll go ahead. Sir, my name is Farhan. What is your thoughts about how the automotive industry will use blockchain technology, especially say for in case of electric vehicles, like they can keep the number of times the battery is charged on the blockchain. So this might help. So if or the resale value, it might help say ki like, this battery has not been used that much because a major amount of cost of the EV is in the battery, right? So what are your thoughts about how blockchain can be used in this?
Uh, definitely,
Definitely,
yeah, any
any
electric vehicle.
electric.
Oh, there are a lot of echo happening. Anyway, so you have these electric vehicles. Almost 40 to 50% of the cost of the vehicle is the battery, and
Yes, sir.
and especially when you are doing swapping, then it becomes compulsory that you should have these blockchain and the data available with you all the time, because it's your battery which is being used by the customer where it is going. So the use of these technologies are very critical in this segment, especially when you are having a new energy source where you have to really control what's happening. Like today we saw a lot of vehicle having problems of fire, and which is
And which
causing
is
Right.
causing
bad name to
that name to
the entire electric vehicle. And so all of these changes can happen in the next few years, where the new requirements and whatever technologies is available, whether it is blockchain or AI or whatever, you have to use all of these to make it convenient for the customers and also for the companies to keep track of whether the product is performing fine, and if it is your invested product, then you are keeping it safe and using it nicely.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Like I am a founder of a blockchain startup. It's called Blockchain Federation. We are starting in the real estate market. We are trying to convert real estate deeds into NFTs. So, like, we were thinking about next going into the automobile sector as well. So, thank you for
Okay.
your insights.
Very nice.
very nice.
I just met
I just met
another
another
entrepreneur who was
entrepreneur
talking
who
about getting into the real estate, making it through blockchain. So it's a very interesting field.
interesting field.
Oh, really? Oh, thank you. Do you remember his name by any chance, sir?
Sumay, he's based out of Delhi NCR.
The
You,
name of the
You know,
company?
I don't
I
remember.
don't remember
It's
its
there
name
on
on
my
the
phone.
phone.
If you reach out to me, I'll share that with you.
Okay, sir. Sure, definitely. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess we have actually overshot a little on time. So many questions, like so many questions still unanswered. Uh, maybe some students can reach out to you if that is fine, sir, after the
Yes.
session even.
Yes.
So I'll be pasting sir's LinkedIn link inside of the chat box, and you can contact him. Thank you, sir, for spending so much of your time and answering many of these questions. Like even after so many questions were asked, I think 80 to 90% of them were answered in the interview, your presentation, and all the questions here. um, and thank you for actually trying to coming in, giving so much of your time, mentoring all these students, like even any of the founders that we have here and any other aspiring entrepreneurs. Very large thank you, and thank you again for spending so much of your time.
Thank you, Kunal. Best wishes to all of you, and do well in your life. And at any stage, if you require my help, I'm always available to youngsters.
Thank you,
Youngsters.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.